Alrighty. Hopefully this is all working. I'm still pretty new to OBS and I'm obviously figuring things out as I go. Can everyone hear me? Is the music too loud? Am I too loud? Let me know if I need to make any adjustments. Like I said, this is all very new and I don't quite know what I'm doing. I'll assume that you guys can hear me. Yes, I can hear myself in my other screen. I think you guys can hear me. Let me know if you need me to turn my mic up. Say hi to some people as they join. I've seen a couple people commenting: Bloody Salamander, Duck Monster, Cat for Real, Melon Juice, Monkey Doodle, Elena Andrews, Dakota, Tina. Welcome everyone to the stream. I see some people are scared. I'm going to say right now, you don't need to be scared. I don't plan on quitting. I know uploads have been slow, and that's because, you know, I have a life. And unfortunately, my professional life takes precedence over stuff I do for fun. Yes, good evening, everyone. Or whatever time it is for you guys. I don't, you know, got people tuning in from different time zones and everything. All right, so as people kind of generally click in, click off, I'm just gonna kind of, yes, hello, Duck Monster, hi Bloody Salamander, hi everyone. I'm just gonna kind of quickly go over kind of where I've been with the channel, and just kind of general life update real quick, I guess. So, last time I streamed, I don't even remember when the last time I streamed was, but it was probably when I was still in school, I would imagine. So I have graduated now. I actually graduated back in the fall semester. So I've kind of just been, you know, getting my life together. I moved to a new city, so that was really exciting. I got a new job, my first professional job after school, so just kind of in general, things have been a little hectic, and I have not had time to truly sit down and record, or even really stream or anything like that. But I think, you know, now's as good of time as any. I have the next week off of work, so that should at least give me a little bit of time to kind of do some things for the channel. Can't guarantee anything, you know, on a schedule at this point at least, because, you know, this is my hobby. I find it fun, but obviously my job and my life comes first. I mean, other than that, I've been going to the gym. I've got a personal trainer that I've been working with, and that's really exciting. Getting in shape. I know it's been asked in the past, and it doesn't get asked very often, but it has been asked in the past, like, oh, are you ever going to show your face? And honestly, I can't see myself ever or being in a position anytime soon where that's something that I want to do. You know, just in general, self-confidence issues and everything, it's a pain, and, you know, I do like that bit of anonymity that I have. I'm fine with you guys knowing me by my voice and by the name I go by online, and that's good enough for me for now. But anyways, so, I mean, as I'm sure all of you guys are aware, Sandersides isn't exactly popping as much as it was, you know, 6 months, a year ago. Obviously, you know, wouldn't want to rush Thomas, especially when they do come out. They, hi, Elle, I see your message. You're going to hear this 30 seconds late, but hello, dear. What was I saying? Yes, Sandersides. It's, you know, it's slow, and obviously that's you know, up to Thomas, but it does mean that momentum for the fandom does kind of slow down. There's not as much stuff being created for it, and, a lot of fans have moved on or at least transitioned to other fandoms, and me personally, I find Sandersides is more of a dormant fandom for myself. I don't consider myself, like, out of the fandom at all. Like, I still enjoy Sandersides, and, occasionally I go back and rewatch them, and I, enjoyed the latest episode very much. We could get into that, but maybe later. Maybe after we've kind of gone over some other stuff. But yeah, so new episode was great, but it's just kind of slow. And that means that, as a lot of other people have, I've kind of gotten into more active fandoms, which is the first one on that list there. I've been very into Dream SMP recently. I actually have been writing fanfic for it. It's on my AO3, if anyone's curious. And I guess that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about, is transitioning the channel to be not just Sandersides. I know that's what kind of people have originally come to me for, and that's really all that's on the channel currently. But I want to be a person who, is able to branch out and do some other stuff. So kind of wanted to just talk through my thoughts, I guess, as to what could possibly go on the channel, and, the things that I might be more passionate for, all that kind of stuff. So, you guys are seeing my little planning document over here, and I guess kind of the first thing, the most obvious way that I would branch out would be just to start reading for some other fandoms, right? It would make a lot of sense that I would transition over to reading fic from other things that I also enjoy. So obviously, Dream SMP is first on that list. I'm very into it. I do enjoy reading fic for it, especially fanfic that expands on the current storyline, or possibly takes an idea and runs with it. There are some others that are AUs as well that are just fantastic. But obviously, there's others on there. I see some people looking through the list. Percy Jackson was called out. Avatar: The Last Airbender, yeah. So the list here now, which is on this document, is, I would say, fandoms that I have either been in the past or would consider myself currently in, and shows or games, in the case of Ace Attorney and Professor Layton, that I am well versed enough in that I would feel comfortable, doing voices for. Because obviously I know I have a little Google form where people have can request fics for me to read, but probably I'd say the only other fandom I've ever gotten besides Sanderside's recommendations is My Hero Academia, and I have not seen My Hero, nor do I necessarily have any plans to do so. I'm not the biggest fan of shonen anime. I've heard good things about it, but I don't know. Maybe one day I'll watch it. I have friends who really like it, but I have no plans for it, so I don't necessarily want to make any promises I'm not going to keep. But I guess to start off with, you guys see this list, and it's a decent sized list, I'd say. That's quite a few fandoms. But is there any other fandoms that you might actively read fanfic for, either shows that maybe I have seen and I'm just not thinking of them? I know that there's definitely a couple on here that I've seen before, but not necessarily thinking of them. Or if, there are shows that I should get into. I know, I've been meaning to watch The Owl House. I have, because I've heard some good things, and I have some people who flood my dashboard with reblogs of the same character. You know who you are. See, am I into Skate the Infinity? I watched the first episode with a friend, but I never, or no, well, we watched the first couple episodes, with my roommate and another friend who was over at the time. I didn't really get into it. I think it was a fine show, but it didn't seem like a thing like I would, like, want to go out and watch the rest of it for myself. L. Undertale, it's definitely a suggestion, and it's one I've thought of, but I'm kind of curious, like, Undertale, from what I know of the fandom, because I was on Tumblr when it really blew up, it seemed like that was more of a comic, like, comics were very big for Undertale, and I'm sure that there are fics as well, but I would need to be recommended fics, because I truly never have seen a fanfic recommended for Undertale, and maybe it's just because I wasn't part of that bit of the fandom, but so I would rely on you guys for that if you truly want an Undertale fanfic read. Voltron, never got into Voltron. I think it looked cool, but then I kind of got into, or started seeing things about the later seasons, and I just kind of decided I didn't really want to get involved in that. Basically. Elle says, yeah, there weren't really that many really good and really plot-based fics. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I know I'm not necessarily looking for show recommendations here, right? I'm looking for fandoms that have very, they have fanfics that are not even necessarily that they need to be popular, but that are well written, in character, and the story brings you something. Like, I enjoy, Fluffyware is kind of a outlier in this, but the rest of my videos on my channel are kind of like, they're fics that have a point, I guess, and I have no problem with fanfic existing. That's just, like, there to be, for fun. Obviously, that's what fanfic is. It's for fun. But, for example, like, you have, the self-love series, which the whole point was that it expanded upon, the universe, the Sandersides universe, and what we saw in Putting Others First, and really, or was it Putting Others First, or no, it was Putting Others First. And, just really expanding on that and showing us, Deceit trying to make Thomas love himself and realize that it's okay to love himself. And, there's I Am Creativity, which explores the idea of, okay, what if the two creativities did fuse together? What would cause that, and how would it, how would it play out? How would the rest of the sides react? So I do enjoy plot-based stuff, for the most part, at least in terms of what I like to read, because, the fluffy stuff that's just kind of like a little character moment, is just kind of like, it's great to read, like, on your own. It's not necessarily, like, I guess always the most compelling thing to listen to. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my own personal preference for fanfic, seeping through to what I want to put on the channel. Someone, Duck Monster said, I would personally like to see some fanfics that you wrote, because you're a good writer, and I like to hear stuff that you created. I appreciate that. Really, the fic that I've been working on the most is a Dream SMP fic. So, if anything, because most of the other stuff that I've written is already on the channel, honestly. There's a few things, like, further back on my AO3 that I haven't read as a podfic, but I don't plan to. So everything that I've planned to read on the channel, I have read already. So definitely, if you guys are interested in Dream SMP, I know kind of my biggest fear with that has been that the fandom is very active on YouTube, which in theory is a good thing, right? Like, people will click through onto my stuff more if it's a more new known series. But at the same time, content creators for the Dream SMP also do media shares quite often. And I guess, I don't know, there's very much a culture of, you know, people sharing animatics to content creators, but sometimes people don't know boundaries. We've seen that already in this fandom, so I guess that's kind of what's kept me from doing it. But I do really want to, because I'm very proud of the fic that I'm writing, and it will be a very long fic, that I will warn you. I'm writing chapter 20 right now, and I am not even a fourth of the way done, probably. Duck Monster asked, question, will you still be doing Sanderside's fanfic at all? I personally will probably not be writing any myself, at least not at the current moment. I don't see myself doing that. You know, if with when the 2-part season finale comes out, maybe that'll change. Like I said, Sandersides isn't a fandom that I'm not in at all. It's more of just like I don't currently create content for it, but I won't say never, but in terms of reading Sanderside's fic on the channel, I do have several fics that I've obtained permission to read already. It's just kind of been a matter of finding motivation and time to record and, you know, edit and work with my thumbnail artists to create thumbnails for them. Elle, you can try putting the link to my fic. I don't know if you're going to get timed out for that or not. I don't know if I made you a mod. So you can try, but don't be surprised if you get timed out. But you certainly can try if you'd like to. But yeah, so that list is there. If you guys, I guess, as kind of a general rule in this chat right here, like if you have a fandom that you'd be really eager to hear a fic written for, or read for, excuse me, I think you should have an idea of what specific fic you might want to recommend to me. Because if you just are saying a fandom that you're in, but you don't necessarily read fanfic for it, that's unfortunately not very helpful on my end. You know, because even with things that I have seen, like I've listened to and seen a bunch of musicals, but I've maybe read one fic for it, and it was for Les Mis, and that was it. Okay, I have to show your thing for review. I think you swore, so. Brianna said She-Ra. Actually, yeah, I have watched She-Ra. I've never read fic for it, but I do have several people that I follow on AO3 just as an author that have posted She-Ra fic. So again, if you have you know, suggestions as to specific fics, I'm definitely open to it. We'll put it on the list. But it'll have to be one that I would have to look into for sure. Anyways, I think I don't want to stay on this too long. Monkey Doodle, I have not watched Has Been Hotel. I don't necessarily have any plans to. It's fine to swear. I'm just saying your message got held for review because you did swear. I don't care that you swear, but that's what happened. Hello says Marvel. I don't watch really any Marvel. I know, I'm just so uncultured. I'm so sorry. I've seen like a couple Marvel movies, but that was not really of my own volition. They were just on at a friend's house. And you know, I just watched them because they were on. But it's never been anything that I sought out. Let's see. Anyways, sorry, I got off topic. So, you know, doing podfics is great, and I don't want to necessarily get away from that entirely because I do really enjoy it. It's fun. It's like voice acting, but I'm, it's for a hobby, so I don't necessarily need to worry about it all that much. And as a person with stage fright, it's baby steps, right? But I think also it would be really interesting to, Elle, you said Monster High, and honestly, I'm down for that. I really like Monster High. So I'm down for that. I don't know if anyone else would care, but I'd read them. But I kind of wanted to expand on, other things that are fandom related or writing related, but not necessarily like just plain podfic, right? So you can kind of see down here, I've got some different things listed. So for this first part, I have some ideas for fan fiction related types of topics. So the first one, I don't know if anyone here watches the channel Overly Sarcastic Productions, or OSP, but if you don't, basically there are two people on it, Red and Blue, and Red does a lot of, she does videos on like mythology and culture, or like stories and things like that. But she also does a series called Trope Talk, or Trope Talks. I don't know if it's plural or not, but yeah, where she basically takes a trope that you see in like general media. So I think she's done like 50 videos on them, so there's a bunch. But like she did, for example, a video on like the 5-man band, that you see a lot in like shonen anime and action movies, or stories, or just in general a lot of media has that trope. And so she kind of talks about how the trope works, where gives some examples as to where it can be seen, sometimes, depending on the trope, gives her own opinions on it, and kind of talks about like variations on the trope sometimes. Like she's talked about time travel before, and that's kind of, there's different variations on the time travel trope. And so I thought it would be an interesting concept to take that kind of general idea is like talking about tropes, but taking specifically tropes that we only really ever see in fan fiction, right? So you got like your coffee shop AUs, which, maybe they exist in general media, but not in the same way that they do in fan fiction. And then you have like soulmate AUs, which, the clock in your wrist little trope is, as far as I can tell, stems from fan fiction. There's the red string of fate, which comes from folklore, but all the variations on soulmate lore have kind of been birthed and developed in fandom. And I thought that would be a really cool idea to explore. So that's kind of one thought. Obviously there's also the idea of doing like month-long events. This kind of goes more in the podfic territory of like the month-long events, like when I did Fluffuary. Possibly they wouldn't necessarily be month-long. Maybe I would do like some week-long events. I've considered doing some events where every day I post like a podfic from a different fandom to kind of just gauge, interaction and stuff like that. So maybe that would come in. AU challenges I have listed here, and it's kind of, so that idea is kind of within those concepts of like those randomized drawing challenges that you might see, where you get like a random number generator and a list that you pick from. And I thought it would possibly be an interesting idea to like gather a couple of my friends who create fanfic content and get a random number generator going, and we each generate a random number and maybe a random fandom, something that we're all in, or it would be the same fandom but just different characters possibly, and then we have to write a little one-shot based on that concept. And then we could like read them out together and, talk about our processes and stuff like that. Obviously that's kind of dependent on, finding other people. I think it's more entertaining if you have like 3 or 4 people working on something like that. but still, a concept. And then the last one on there, I'm not sure if I would do it. Fanfic book reviews, mostly because unlike a published book, right? Unlike a published book, it's not necessarily like, fan fiction is written for fun most of the time. Some people use it as like practice, right? Writing practice, and that's great. And some people treat it as if they're writing a normal book. I know I certainly treat my writing no different than, my fanfic writing no different than I do my original writing. But so doing a review, especially if there's something that, if I'm bashing on it, I don't want to bash on fic. Maybe I would only do reviews of fics I really like as more of like a shout out type thing. So if that sounds interesting, shout outs of fanfics I find really interesting, then maybe we could do that. But I wouldn't talk about fics that are bad, unless they're like My Immortal or something, because I feel like there's already been bashing of that. I've never read My Immortal, actually. Fun fact. Elle says probably wouldn't be a good test for gauging interaction if you suddenly post every day for a month. Yeah, probably. It wouldn't be for a month. It'd be more like a week. But still, you've got a point there. I would definitely have to think through how that would work. Maybe it would be more like, in a month, I post like once a week from a different fandom. Like, I don't know if anyone watches Drawfee here. They have news days. Tuesday News Day, where they do something like a new challenge on Tuesdays. Maybe I'd do that. Maybe I'd post a new fandom on Tuesdays. But yeah, just kind of going down to the rest of the list. Gaming, obviously, that's not a hard leap to come to. Specifically gaming of like visual novels and RPGs, things that would involve voice acting and because that is kind of, that's what my channel's about, like me talking about things and my voice and, whatever. So, if I were to play a game, it wouldn't necessarily, it would be probably very story-based, and, probably give me the opportunity to do some voice acting or reading of lines. I personally would love to do a playthrough of an Ace Attorney game on my channel. Not that I think anyone would care. Ace Attorney is very much a dormant, talking about Sandersides being a dormant fandom, Ace Attorney is a dormant fandom. We have not had a new game in years. We just recently got a translation of a game, but we got an unofficial translation of that years ago, so the hype around that is very minimal. And then finally, kind of one of my other ideas is going into more of like my original writing stuff. So, I've been writing for years, probably since, fifth grade, something like that. It's been a long time, right? And so I have a lot of old, half-started first chapters of stories, that half-finished stories that just never, that they're bad. They're bad. I'm just gonna say. I wrote them in like 6th grade, 7th, probably more like middle school. They're bad. Possibly just reading those on the channel, possibly with a friend, making fun of, what I thought was good prose at the time. And just kind of, and at the same time possibly talking about how, if I were to rewrite the story today, how I might rework it to actually, be not terrible. And then the other thing is just, there's a lot of, like, really, really popular, or not popular necessarily, but very well-known, if you are on Tumblr, there's quite a few well-known flash fiction stories that kind of get posted on, like, posts from, like, writing prompt blogs and stuff, and some of those I really enjoy, and I think it would be an interesting delve into something a little bit different, because reading those is mostly prose. There's not usually a whole lot of dialogue, and if there is, it's for characters that are original, right? They're not necessarily like something that I can draw on for fanfic. So it could be like a fun challenge for me to create, a voice for someone. Excuse me. Duck Monster says, recommendation, will you do a playthrough of DDLC or Undertale? They are both very story-based. So DDLC, I think a lot of the playthroughs of those kind of rely on the shock value of that game, and I've watched playthroughs of those. So I don't know how much my playthrough would really be worth anything, because I already know the twist of the story. I know what the game's about. I know, how it takes a twist halfway through. Like, I know about that. So, I mean, if you think it would still be worthwhile to watch me play through the game, I'd be open to it. I just don't know if that's something, that you guys would want, because I do already know the plot of that. The same thing kind of with Undertale. I mean, I think Undertale still, there's a lot more to that game, so even though I've seen playthroughs of it before, I could still get something out of it. Personally, I think rather than doing an Undertale playthrough, because I have watched many Let's Plays of that game, I think I would probably more likely do a playthrough of Deltarune, because I have not experienced that game in any way. So I don't really know anything about that, except obviously it's a remix, Deltarune's a remix of the word Undertale. Minecraft playthrough speedrun. I am not a good speedrunner, Elle. I am not, and I have no desire to be. That's my brother. My brother's a speedrunner. I will say, I did, or am setting up a new computer, and that would give me some opportunities to play some more graphic heavy games as well. If people wanted me to play Minecraft, I certainly could. I think, I've obviously, as I'm part of the Dream SMP fandom, it's not surprising that I've had a fantasy of creating my own type of roleplay based, Minecraft server, but I don't necessarily plan on that. Jolie says maybe writing tips video. I mean, I certainly could. There's a lot of those out there though, so I guess writing tips is so broad. Specifically, I mean, if anything, like I have my own petty things that I look for in fanfic, and some not so petty. I could certainly make a passive-aggressive video about it, but if you wanted it to be sincere, I don't quite know about that. So, I mean, I guess if you had more specific things that you wanted for writing tips, I can certainly give it a try, but, I'm just a person who, I've taken one creative writing class, and I don't think I got anything out of it because I'd already moved past that level. I've just been writing for a long time. I'm not necessarily like trained or anything in, how to write. It's just kind of things you just learn over time. You guys gotta write and read, and just practice makes perfect. But I could definitely delve into that idea if we think so. Jolie also said maybe you could play YTTD. I'm not sure what that is. Are you able to... Your turn to die. Okay. Interesting. Alright, I'll write that down. Is it like... I'm assuming it's a horror game based on that thing, or that name, but I'm open to it. I guess, is it gory at all? I'm just thinking like monetization wise. Don't necessarily want to, get myself demonetized. I see FNAF has been brought up a couple times. I certainly could. I think especially since I'm getting a new computer, it would be able to handle it. My laptop currently wouldn't be able to handle it, I don't think. Yeah. Elle says maybe you could do published book recs, like by genre or by style and things. I have had the idea of talking about books, like published books that were really important to me growing up, like reading them. Things that shaped either my own personality or my writing style, or just kind of taught me about things about writing that I find really, really important. So, I mean, I'm definitely open to talking about that. I mean, I would love to gush about the books that I love, you know? So I'm else at horror games. I mean, yeah, other than FNAF, I don't really know what horror games really are out there. I saw Jolie said, it's a visual novel death game and it's not that gory, more psychological stuff. Okay. Just as long as, like, you know, I kind of have a general idea. And I'm sure I can look up, like, trigger warnings or whatever if I needed to put a warning at the beginning of the video or whatever. Similar to Danganronpa. Okay, I kind of know the general gist of Danganronpa. Haven't played it either. Maybe that's another one to play. Danganronpa's kind of like a visual novel death game, right? I think. I don't know. My friends have recommended it to me. They've said that they think I would probably like it. And I agree with them. I think I would like it. But I've never interacted with anything like it. Never, like, watched the anime or anything like that either. So I don't know much other than the one character is like a meme. And the art style is very distinct. That's about all I know about it. Doc Monster says, I like how you're so interactive with your fans. It's very nice. Well, I have 10 concurrent viewers currently. It makes it very easy to be interactive. The more people chatting, obviously, the harder it is to interact personally. But I do enjoy it too. It's nice. Play Spooky's House of Jump Scares. It's really cute. It doesn't... It sounds more like it would be jump scares. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that you're lying, but I'm not sure about that. I mean, it sounds like it would be a jump scare game. Pamzon says Wildcrats or Zumbumafu or TMNT. I haven't ever watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, actually. It was never a part of my childhood. I know it's part of some of my friends' childhood, but I didn't grow up with it or anything like that. And as for the other two, I don't know if I want to know what kind of fanfic might exist for that. Not sure about that, really. I know what the internet's like. I know what things are like. I'm aware of how dark things can go sometimes. The thing is, gaming, I'm not opposed to it, but it's also very saturated on YouTube, of course. You know, like, there's a million gaming YouTubers, right? And I don't mind playing games, but I don't want that to become my channel. I think, if anything, a gaming video would be more of like a chill Friday video if I, like, you know, wasn't feeling it. Or anything. Geometry Dash playthrough. Is that something you actually want, Elle? Like, is that really something you would actually... Be honest. Is that something you would actually sit through? If I posted a video, you're telling me you would watch through that entire thing. If you say yes, you're a liar. Genshin Impact? Maybe. I've heard some interesting things about that. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of see it as a pay-to-win game. If I don't necessarily need to pay, I would be open to it. Is that very story-driven? I don't honestly know anything about Genshin Impact other than it's, like, cute girl designs, right? Like, that's about all it's like cute anime girls. That's all I know. Detroit Become Human, if you haven't played it. I have watched a playthrough. I wouldn't be opposed to playing it, though, because that's one of those games where there's, a bunch of different storylines, similar to the Telltale games, like what's it called? The zombie one, with Clementine and the other guy. That series, I can't remember the name right now, but it's definitely a game that, like, even if I've watched a playthrough, I'm still able to, do stuff with that, because there's a lot of options. You would watch me play Geometry Dash? I don't know if I believe you, but alright. Julie says Attack on Titan. I haven't seen Attack on Titan. It's a funny story. I watched the first episode of it, and I didn't like the art style. This was like in middle school. I didn't like the art style, and so I didn't finish the first episode. Whoops. Monkey Doodle says, are you interested in cosplay? And you would watch my gaming. Oh, I appreciate that. I am, actually. I'm very interested in cosplay, and I've thought about doing some cosplay videos. But that also kind of runs into the territory of showing my face and my body. And it's definitely a little iffy. I'm not against it at all, but it would... I don't know if I have the facilities to do it right now. I don't necessarily have a proper camera or really a good space to film. But that might be something a little down the line, maybe possibly after I buy a house in a year or two, and have a little more space. I'd definitely be interested in doing that. I guess I just had a thought about my face, but it's fine. I will say I do have a cosplay Instagram, but I don't know, I'm thinking about taking that down because I'm just a little uncomfortable. I was the same way about Death Note, didn't watch past the first episode because the art, really, I didn't think Death Note's art style was all that, I guess it's a little weird. Some of Light's facial expressions can be weird. I watched Death Note was the fourth anime I ever watched, in middle school. So I did watch the whole thing, but not a fan of it now, honestly. I think the concept is cool, but after about halfway through and they did something to one of the characters, I was like, oh, this is boring now. Cool. Let's see. Fanfic tropes and Coley does things, entering the blank fandom style, maybe. I do like the idea of kind of adopting some of the same type of concepts that Coley does. Coley, am I saying her name right? I don't watch her videos. Not personally. Or not usually, often. But, definitely, I've seen, concepts. I've seen, Coley did a video where it was a fanfic trope tier list. And I think that would be fun to do as well. But yeah, I definitely want to kind of look around, see what's on the internet already in terms of content, and kind of put my own spin onto things. Coley? Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, and like I said, there's, I don't necessarily, I don't want to be known as just Sanderside's podfic channel, right? That's kind of, it's just, when you box yourself in that much, as soon as the fandom dies, your channel dies as well, right? So, but I don't want to move completely away from fandom or from fanfic, because that's a very important part of my life. And it's, something I really am passionate about. And, just simply moving from fandom to fandom as, you know, people's interest shift is fine, but I really would love to delve into more of this, I would say. Not just the podfic, and the podfic will stay. Ideally, I'd like to set up a schedule where you would get both podfic and other types of content on a regular basis. At the very least, as I kind of figure out what I want to do with the channel. And I will say I can't guarantee I'm going to be a podfic channel forever. I also can't guarantee that I won't be a podfic channel forever. I can't guarantee how long I'll be doing this in general, right? You know, it's been a very fun hobby for me. I enjoy my fandom that comes with it. The people who comment on my videos, you know, I recognize names, and I've made friends for, you know, in my Discord, the people who join my Discord, and the people who I've met on Tumblr and everything, and it's very important to me. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I also have a novel that I'd like to write, right? I think Elle knows about it for sure. I think. I know that Elle knows about it because I've talked to him about it for so many times. And it's, in a way, it kind of encompasses what the channel kind of almost is, because it's a soulmate story. It goes with that concept of the soulmate clock being on your wrist. And, you know, so it's a fanfic concept, or something that's very popular in fandom, but it's an original story. And I guess I'd like to cultivate an audience who would be important or interested in, you know, at least taking a look at something like that. And maybe, you know, maybe if in a couple of years or so, if I'm still doing the channel and I end up writing this novel, maybe you'll get a little sneak peek of the first chapter as I post it. Thank you, Elle. I very much appreciate you saying it's a cool concept. I think so too. It's very much something, it's a concept I've had since the first year of college, my freshman year of college. So I've had it for like 4 years now, right? Like it's been with me for a long time, and it's something that's very important to me too, because it's, you know, it features a character who's like me, who's asexual, aromantic. It's very important to me. Jolie says, I'd love to hear about your novel if you're chill with telling us. I could tell you probably as much as you might get from the back or the front inside cover of a book. How about that? Because I don't want to spoil too much, right? I've already spoiled enough with Elle. Elle doesn't get the original, you know, the first experience, because I tell him everything. So it's a concept of a world where every single person, for the most part, is born with a clock in their wrist, and it counts down to the moment that they meet their soulmate, right? Pretty standard fanfic concept there. The story focuses on three siblings. So there's the oldest sibling, Christina, the middle sibling, Jake, and the youngest sibling, Robin. And all three of them have very different concepts of what it's like to be with their soulmate. Christina is a person who has dreamed about meeting her soulmate since the day she understood what a soulmate meant, when she understood what the clock in her wrist was counting down to. She read, you know, just romance novels galore, you know, romance magazines, teen magazines, just everything to just get her ready to meet her soulmate and live happily ever after, and this cloud of love and, you know, honeymoon phase entirely, basically. Like, she always had this just concept that, you know, your soulmate is the person who's made for you, and, you know, that can't break. It's just an unbreakable bond. As soon as you meet them, like, you know everything about the other person. Jake, the middle sibling, so Christina's the oldest, Jake is in the middle, and Robin is the youngest. They're all separated by 3 years. So Jake is 3 years older than, 3 years older than Robin. Christina is 3 years older than Jake. Anyways, so Jake is completely different. Jake is a person who has never really put too much stock in the idea of a soulmate. He's never really cared, not that he doesn't care, but he doesn't see it as being any different than being with any other person. So he's dated a bunch of different people in like high school and in college, and the relationships never lasted, and he didn't necessarily care that they didn't last, He would be with them for a couple months, go on dates, hang out, have fun in whatever way that they wanted to, and then they would just separate. And it was never anything, and it was kind of a known, an agreed upon thing every time that their relationship was not going to last because they weren't soulmates. They were just there to have fun, and that was it. And then there's Robin, the youngest sibling, who is asexual aromantic, and Elle provided a very lovely description in the chat there if you don't know what that means. And they have never really wanted to meet their soulmate. They've always dreaded the idea because, the media portrays soulmates as being this, incredible bond, and, your soulmates for life, your romantic partners for life, and they're the person who completes you. And Robin has never really been a fan of that. They just get very nervous, thinking that, their soulmate is going to want them to be romantic and maybe want them to be sexual, and they're just not ready to do that. But you can't outrun your clock, unfortunately. And all three of the siblings, interestingly enough, have their clocks count down to where all three of them meet their soulmates within the same week. And basically the book would follow them from there and follow them meeting their soulmates, kind of realizing individually how their idea, their personal idea of a soulmate maybe was a little off in whatever way. And yeah, so I guess that's about all the information I feel like I should share publicly, at least at this point. But, I'm sure you can kind of, even from that description, you can kind of see that, it's being written by someone who has a love for fan fiction and has a love for the kinds of ways that fandom likes to twist tropes in a way that not necessarily, standard media really does constantly. Standard media honestly lags kind of behind in some tropes, especially in the romance department. So that's something I say I'm working on. There's nothing written for it, unfortunately, right now. It's mostly just kind of, random little notes written down in the margins of my stuff and on my notes tab and in my phone and stuff like that. And I actually wrote a first chapter in college, but it's going to be very much reworked. Probably won't appear at all in the actual book. So that might be an interesting thing eventually if I ever publish it to read on the channel, like a cut chapter. KCB says, hello, I'm late. What are we talking about? We're talking about my novel idea that I'd like to write. And just kind of generally talking about how I'd like to cultivate, on this channel, the idea that, as a writer, I like to be seen as multifaceted, right? Not just a fan fiction writer, and and there's YouTubers galore who have published books. I know Lindsay Ellis has published a book, which I've been meaning to borrow that from a friend to read it, because I'm told it's very, very good. I think it's called Axiom's End, I think. And I know that there's been other YouTubers who have written fiction books. A lot have written biographies or memoirs or whatever, and that's a different ballpark. Duck Monster says, that sounds so interesting. I'd buy that if it was published. Well, thank you. I would appreciate it if you did so. I have lots of concepts for this world. And, you know, if my first book did take off, I would love to be able to explore this world and different ideas of how people inhabit it. It wouldn't necessarily be a sequel because, you know, this first book is about these 3 siblings who are learning about their relationship with their soulmate. If I were to publish a second or even a third book, they'd exist in the same universe, but they would be about completely different characters, right? So I don't quite know how that's categorized because it's not a direct sequel. I'd be creating my own cinematic universe, except it's a book universe. But Elle says gay rights fanfic trope published book 10 out of 10. Yeah, gay rights. Yeah. Oh, I should mention. So just kind of to clarify. So Christina, her soulmate is named. This is gonna go over well with this crowd. Her soulmate is named Thomas. It has nothing to do with Sanders Sides or Thomas Sanders, I promise. Just in case anyone is gonna say that, it's not. Jake's soulmate is named Caleb, and he is a trans man. Kind of put out what kind of representation I'm hoping to have. And then Robin uses they them pronouns and is non-binary. Specifically, I think agender is what I'm going for. And their soulmate is named Tessa. So pretty gay. Christine and Thomas are specifically meant to be the token straight couple in my fic. And they're the ones who have the most relationship issues. So that's fun. No, L. Mr. Sanders is not in the book. His last name is not Sanders. I promise. I can't even remember if I was into Sanders Sides when I was in school. I must have been, because Sanders Sides was excuse me. Sanders Sides was first posted, like the first episode was posted 4 years ago, and I was in college 4 years ago. And I've been into Thomas Sanders since he started on YouTube. So yeah, that connection never made a difference. I never connected that until I started telling Elle about it, and Elle was like, Thomas Sanders? I'm like, no. Or was it Elle? It might have been someone else. Duck Monster says, question, what would happen to the clock after a person finds their soulmate? Good question. I haven't completely decided yet. So the clock is kind of like an organ in the body. So it's a little bit raised. If you kind of imagine, this might sound a little gross, but I promise it's not meant to be gross. If you kind of imagine like as if it were the texture of like your eye, like kind of smooth and a little bit raised, but it's not sensitive like your eye. Like you can touch it, you can, do stuff with it. If you scrape it accidentally, it'll heal over normally. But it's slightly raised, and it's just a little kind of bar across your wrist. And my idea was kind of the general concept of whenever you meet your soulmate, it kind of scabs up, and then it kind of, when the scab is gone, it's no longer raised, and it's more almost like a tattoo, kind of like it's scarred in the formation of the zeros that your clock hit right when you met your soulmate. Like it scars in the zeros, so the zeros are always there. But a little angsty idea for you here. If, for example, something happens to your soulmate before you get to meet them, it scabs up like normal, and then when it clears up and the scab falls off, it's scarred in the exact time where your soulmate left the world. So that's a fun little nugget of, of information there, and possibly an idea that I would use for a later book. Monkey Doodle says, what would happen if you lost your arm? So many good questions, and also so many questions that my friends asked me in my freshman year of psychology class, or philosophy class, when we would go outside and stand there for 15 minutes before our next class, and they would ask me questions about the universe that I was creating, and it was very fun. It was very good for world building. So whether you lose your arm or if you're just born without an arm, you still have a soulmate. But, so the clock in your wrist is not the source of the organ that controls it, if that makes sense. Like, it's just kind of like an extension of the organ that is visible to you. The actual organ, you might say, resides in your chest. So even if you lose your arm and you lose your countdown, you don't lose your soulmate. You just have to try a little harder to pay attention to how you're feeling, because when you meet your soulmate and your clock chimes, your body also fills with adrenaline, and you just feel, people in the world describe it as just feeling like it's right, like the world has, the stars have aligned, that kind of thing, very waxing poetic about it. But you can tell when you meet your soulmate, even if you don't have a physical clock. Sometimes, people might be born like with their clock not visible, or it just didn't develop properly, or, they don't have their arm or whatever. You still have a soulmate. Elle says, I found a Monster High Hermitcraft crossover fic. Nice. I know someone on Tumblr kind of had a cute little Ever After High Dream SMP fic. Or not fic, but just AU that they would talk about, and like talk about where the different characters fit in and stuff like that. And that also I like a lot. It's very fun. I feel like those AUs almost are better for, like, if you want to draw them, because the characters have very interesting designs in, like, Monster High and Ever After High and stuff. Let's see. I know chat's like 30 seconds behind, so you guys hear me talking 30 seconds after I actually say something, so, it's a little fun, but, let's see. Would these clocks ever malfunction or break in that world? It would be uncommon. It'd be kind of like akin to your heart having issues, or being born with like a lung disorder or something like that. Like, it's an organ like anything else. And so most people, it works just fine. I haven't really developed, like, this is like soft science fiction. Like, I pretend that it's science-y, but really, like, would it actually work in real life? No. Do I care? No. So I haven't fully considered, like, if there's any sicknesses that, like, would make your clock stop working, or anything like that, but it's definitely an interesting concept to explore and think about, and see, how you might be able to explore that concept with a character. But I don't have a proper answer, because I haven't truly considered that in the world, as it is. Do animals have soulmate clocks, or just people? No, it's just people. Possibly there's research going into whether or not animals feel the adrenaline feeling that humans get when they meet their soulmate, because humans didn't always have clocks. Evolution and everything, like, it kind of evolved over time. Like, the internal organ in their chest was always there, but the clock developed later. Maybe not physical clocks, but they can feel that spark, you say, when people who lose their clocks feel. People in the universe don't know for sure. There's some scientific people, scientific theories and experiments and stuff that, have looked at it, but it's not an easy thing to prove. So there's not an in-universe answer. And out of universe, I don't really have an answer for you either. Probably not. Sorry. Monkey Doodle asks, does everyone have a soulmate? Yes. At least they're meant to have one. Some people even are born with two. It's, like I said, it's, you could be born without a clock, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a soulmate. But it does mean you're more likely to accidentally miss meeting that soulmate, if that makes sense. But the soulmate doesn't necessarily need to be your romantic partner. You don't need to build that relationship with them. Doug Monster just asked the question that I just answered. Are the soulmates always romantic, or can they be platonic? They can be whatever you feel like your relationship with them should be. There's no rules saying that they need to be romantic. It's certainly a societal standard that most people who are soulmates consider themselves romantic partners, but it's not always. And sometimes you have soulmates where that is icky if they were romantic. And I'll leave it at that for now. Could you be born without the soulmate organ? Theoretically, but it would be a pretty heavy birth defect, and it'd be unlikely that you would be born just without that organ, without having some other issues to other organs. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't just be born without your soulmate clock organ. You'd also probably be born with issues to your heart and your lungs and your kidneys, your stomach. There'd be all sorts of complications there. So, it would be medically very unlikely that a person born without the organ would survive, just given the fact that it wouldn't be the only thing affected by being born that way. I think given all the questions here, I can safely say that people, might be interested in some of my original writing. Just possibly, I don't know if I can say for sure, but Monkey Doodle says, can soulmates end up being enemies and never want to see the other? Possibly. There's you guys are asking all the questions that for a lot of them I already have story concepts for. So I'm like debating on how much I want to say. Once I would get to writing them, this would be years old, and the live stream might even be deleted by that point. They certainly could. It would be unlikely that they would start that way. Just given culturally, what a soulmate is supposed to mean. But there's certainly a possibility that with the, with societal pressure and just in general, people pushing too hard, there could certainly be a possibility that they would both grow to dislike each other. And that's also to say that, just because you're soulmates doesn't necessarily mean that both people are good people. So soulmates can still end up in unhealthy, even abusive relationships in some cases, and that's not necessarily, it's not well understood in universe, right? Like, it's not something that society really acknowledges as a thing, even though it very much is. If you were born without a soulmate clock, would your soulmate have a clock or not? Sorry for all the questions. Don't worry. If I didn't like the questions, I wouldn't answer them. So you don't have to worry. I will answer them for as long as you guys have them, and as long as they aren't too big of spoilers. Your soulmate having a clock is not dependent on you having a clock or not. So whether or not you have one doesn't determine if your soulmate has one, and vice versa. So they could have one, they could not. It truly depends on them and the circumstances of their birth and their life, you know. But yeah. This is reminding me of when I was in college. I took a class freshman year. It was about creativity, and the final, it was a fun class. It was an interesting one, but the final assignment was to create a creative project. And like I said, I wrote the first chapter, or a draft of a chapter, in for that project, and I read it out loud with help of my friends in class, and this was about how it went. You know, I spent probably at least 20 minutes standing up in front of the class as my classmates raised their hands and asked me questions about the universe. It was great. I love it. I love talking about my world building. It's one of my favorite things to do, is world build. Raven says, in your universe, how are soulmates defined? Like, what makes a soulmate other than the organ? So there's different definitions of a soulmate depending on who you ask in the world. If you were to ask, you know, just a general person, they'd probably say like, oh, you know, it's a person, your life partner, right? Like, most people would probably say romantic, but some might just say, oh, they're your best friend. In terms of more, I guess, scientific terms, you might say, in universe, soulmates are defined as the person who causes the most change in your life, or causes you to undergo some, you know, big changes. I need to work on the wording, but basically they're the most important person in your life, but important doesn't necessarily mean that you see them or their actions as good or helpful. They're just important because they shape you into the person maybe you were meant to be, fate-wise, right? And you'll notice in that definition, that doesn't necessarily mean that the soulmates have to be good for it. And as the author, that's kind of how I am going with it, is like they're the person who shapes the character into who they are. And the person who makes the biggest, has the biggest effect on your life, which gives me a lot of freedom to play with the concepts of, you know, soulmates not being good for each other, and, you know, one soulmate or being in an abusive relationship, like I mentioned. That's a thing in the world. There is a minor character who, honestly, I'm considering writing her own book for her at some point, because that would be more of a direct sequel, because her story is very, very interesting. Duck Monster says, would you make multiple novels about this concept? Because this sounds absolutely genius. That's the hope. The hope would be I would be able to create multiple books, each following a character or a couple of characters who are dealing with a different scenario or a different concept in the world. You know, you can kind of consider pretty much any one of these questions that you guys are asking. I could probably take and spin them into something that I would explore through a character. Tina says, I left for a bit. What's going on? I'm talking about my original novel idea. And also, you know, if you have any suggestions about things that I could do on the channel. That's where this started. And then we started talking about my original writing, and it's kind of spiraled from there, which I don't mind, but that's where we are right now. But yeah, I think unless any of you guys have any other like suggestions for the channel, you know, anything under any of these topics, fan fiction things, expanding content like gaming. Art is another thing I wanted to put under here. Not necessarily like drawing, because I'd like to get better, but I'm not the best at it. And it's not necessarily something that I want to stream. But like I do a lot of like diamond painting. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I do like diamond painting as well, and it would be fun to like do some like chill art streams where I like, have a camera down on the desk, facing down on the desk, and I just like chat while I'm doing diamond painting or some other craft or something like that. I don't know. Could be fun. Elle says, Saphira, be like, let's discuss my channel and YouTube stream. Stream chat said, no, I would like to talk about Soulmate Clock. True. True. Raven said, are there any parent-child soulmate bonds? Because I'm assuming that would cause a lot of issues. There's never a case where the biological parent and the child are soulmates. No. Just biologically, it doesn't work like that. That does not mean that there are not soulmates with very wide age gaps. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because I do have a story plan for that. So I promise it is not gross. I promise it's very wholesome, and it would be an ending that, it would be good, and it would prove that soulmates do not need to be romantic. We'll say that. All right, I'm going to answer these last couple questions, and then if you guys have more questions on the stream, you can leave comments on the stream when it goes public afterwards, and I'll try and answer those, because I am enjoying answering these, but my throat's starting to go a little bit, so I want to end before I'm like dead. So I'll answer these last two that I see in here, or last one, excuse me. Duck Monster says, what if someone were to attack your clock with a weapon like a knife? How would that feel or affect that person? The clock itself isn't any more or less sensitive than any other organ. So it would feel like you were being stabbed in the wrist by a knife. And like I said, that organ it would heal over. Possibly there might be a scar through it, which would make it a little difficult to read. But that's not to say that there aren't some cult activities that involve getting rid of the clock entirely. And that is a different story. There's definitely some religious organizations covering your clock with like a cloth, like wrapping a cloth around your wrist is a very common thing. It's similar to like covering your hair for religious reasons, like kind of a similar idea. But there are some cults, not great groups that go a little bit further with that kind of stuff. So that's something I'd love to explore eventually too, but that would definitely require some more sensitivity reading than just some of the other stuff, which is a little more fluffy and wholesome. Elle's excited for a clock. You shouldn't be excited for a clock cult. All right. I'm gonna head out. I didn't eat dinner either, so I should go and eat before I do that. But yes, thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for kind of offering opinions on where I should take the channel. Thank you for indulging me and letting me talk about my original novel idea as well. I definitely want to include some more of my original writing on the story, or on the channel, excuse me, because I enjoy world building. I enjoy creating characters, and I enjoy being able to tell a story that is a story that I would have liked to read when I was a kid, right? So thank you all for coming out. I promise if I you know, when I end up writing this novel, you guys will be the first to know. Well, maybe not the first, but you guys will know, I promise. Other than that, thank you all for coming out. I'm sorry for the people who just joined and I'm now signing off, but you can go back and watch the VOD if you really want to know all that I talked about. And I will talk to you guys later. Hopefully you guys will see some new uploads on the channel. I don't want to promise anything in terms of dates yet, but we're working on it, I promise. All right. Thank you all, my lovely little gemstones. I hope you have a lovely evening or day or wherever you are in the world. And I will see you next time. Bye.